So you finally picked up your old dusty guitar from the basement, or you even bought a brand new one to add some live guitar to your beats. But what now? Trying to learn a new instrument can be very overwhelming, especially because there's so much information online and so many tutorials that it can be very hard to find out what you really have to focus on. And especially as a producer, your main goal probably isn't to be the best guitar player or have all the skills. And that's exactly why I'm making this video. I'll show you the skills and techniques that helped me the most to be able to play cool chords and guitar melodies in my beats. Just a quick disclaimer, if you're an absolute beginner, don't be frustrated if you can't play everything or don't understand everything. You can always start with the most basic and easiest techniques I'll show you, and then come back to this video whenever you feel like you're ready to take the next step. But enough talking, let's get started. Okay, I know what you're thinking, but I won't tell you to learn how to play these boring, ugly, basic chords. And I also won't tell you to learn how to play Wonderwall. Instead, start by trying this. You got that? Try this then. Got that? Try this. What I'm trying to tell you is that before you try and play anything, just take a bit of time and get comfortable with your guitar. Get your left hand used to pressing down the strings and get your right hand used to plucking the strings, or to use a plug, whichever you prefer. Personally, for me, it's much easier to use my fingers, but you can just play around and see what works best for you. So just take 10 or 15 minutes out of every day, and instead of scrolling through random TikToks, just grab your guitar and play some notes. Just a few tips to play clean notes. First of all, make sure your guitar neck is a bit elevated. I like to just cross my legs and sit like I'm sitting right now. You can also just elevate your leg just to make sure the neck is pointing upwards. Secondly, try to push the string down more towards the end of the fret instead of in the middle or right at the top. That just makes it a bit easier to have a clean note. And lastly, make sure your left wrist is pointing outwards a bit. You don't have to go too far, but if you have your wrist back here, your fingers are very limited. If you push it out, you have much more freedom to move your fingers and reach all the notes. And lastly, for the basics, try and memorize the names for the notes. You don't have to know them all over the guitar, but start by memorizing the open strings, which are E, A, D, G, B and E again. And then it's also very useful if you memorize the notes of the two low strings. That will come in very handy later in this video. Enough of all that boring stuff, let's get to actually play something that sounds good. So what's great about the guitar is if you know one chord, you know all the chords. Let me show you what I mean. So this is a C minor chord. This is a D minor chord. E minor, F minor, G minor, and so on. So as you probably noticed, I didn't have to switch the position of my fingers at all. I just moved my hand up and down the neck. And that's because I used a movable chord shape. And these chord shapes really are the best friend of lazy producers, because you only have to memorize a few shapes and you'll be able to add any chord you want to your beat. The most important thing you have to know about these chords is that most of these are bar chords, which means that you'll have to use your index finger to press down all the strings at once. This can be very hard in the beginning, so don't be frustrated if you struggle with this. What really helps with this is pushing out your wrist, like I said earlier. You can also use your thumb to press against the back of the neck to apply more pressure. And you can even help out with your middle finger by pressing it against your index finger. So whenever you're able to push down all the strings and get a clean note, you can try to learn these basic chord shapes. In case you don't know how to read these, you just have to imagine the guitar neck standing up like this. And then these diagrams or tables or whatever you call it, they just show you where you have to push down the strings to get the chord. I'd suggest you to always practice like only 2 at once until you got these down. For example, pick the minor 7 and the major 7 shape, and then just try playing them all over the neck, switch between them and just get comfortable with them. The shapes that are based on the A string will be a bit easier because you don't have to press down all the strings. For these shapes, the root note of the chord will be on the lowest string. So that's why I told you to learn the notes of the lower strings earlier. So let's say you want to play a D minor chord, for example. You just have to find a D note, put your chord shape down, and there you have it. And these shapes are great because you really don't have to memorize a lot. Just 2 of them can be enough to make great chord progressions for your beats. Let's say I only learned 1 minor 7 and 1 major 7 shape, and I can already make chord progressions like this, for example. If you learned all of these shapes and feel comfortable with them, here are just a few more that I like to use in my beats that you can practice afterwards. Okay, now we got the chords down, but what if we want to play some lead melodies on our beat? That's easy, just play this. Don't worry, this is much simpler than it looks. You only have to memorize this shape. So it's just 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4. So this is the pentatonic minor scale. Pentatonic means that there are only 5 notes in the scale instead of 7. So we don't have any halftone steps, which basically just means that any note in that scale will always sound good. And what's great about this scale is that it's really fun to practice, and it also doesn't take long at all until you're able to play something that sounds at least kinda good. So what you can do to practice this is just make your own chord progressions or melodies, or just look up backing tracks on YouTube. They usually include the scale in the title. So let's say you want to play something in A minor. You'll just have to find the A note on the lowest string, which is right here. And from here you can just play the pattern that I just showed you. So you can just like play it from bottom to top, top to bottom. And then just play around with skipping some notes, sliding up and down some notes. So yeah, that is how I spend lots of my time practicing. It's really fun and you will get the hang of it very quickly. If you're getting bored of this one shape, you can either try and learn all the other pentatonic minor shapes, or you can do it like I did it and just slowly explore the guitar neck. Let me show you what I mean. So like I said, I was just practicing a lot with backing tracks, and I eventually started to break out of this shape by, for example, sliding up a few notes, sliding down a few notes, and just seeing what other notes sound good as well. And I ended up being able to play pretty much over the entire neck without having to learn all these other shapes. Alright, that's basically everything I wanted to show you in this video. If you get these few basic techniques down, you will definitely be able to come up with stuff for your beats. If you want to get a bit deeper into guitar playing, these YouTube channels really helped me to develop my skills. And if you're looking for some more skills and techniques to spice up your guitar playing a bit, I'd suggest you to look into thumb slapping, hammer-ons and pull-offs, playing 2 notes at once for your melodies, pitch bending, and maybe even harmonics. And yeah, that's it for this video. Like I said, don't be frustrated if anything in this video is too much for you. You can always come back to this. If you have any questions, or in case my explanations weren't good enough, feel free to drop a comment. I'll try and answer every question you have. And now stop watching YouTube and go practice, man.